I was born with extreme pain sensitivity. A simple push feels like being pricked by 1,000 needles. A single slap leaves me in agonizing pain. My mother said it was the curse of our witch bloodline. Our bodies are too sensitive, able to feel even the slightest wrinkles of fate. On her deathbed, she told me this sensitivity would guide me to my fated one. Later, Alpha Victor of the Moonclaw pack told me, "You are my fated mate, my very life." Because of our blood bond, any pain I feel is transmitted to him, magnified tenfold. When his family's arranged fiancée pinched my arm, Alpha Victor spasmed in agony and immediately terminated all business partnerships with the Linwoods. His mother, the former Luna, slapped me, "Take $1 million and stay away from my son." My cheek burned like fire. The next second, Alpha Victor went into shock from the phantom pain and threw his own mother into the pack prison. Since then, the entire werewolf world knew Alpha Victor's golden rule. If she frowns even once, I will crush your bones. Yet, the daughter of the Ice Wolf Pack's Alpha, who had just returned from overseas, didn't know this. She kicked open my dorm door with her minions. "How dare a low-life human like you seduce Alpha Victor?" The next second, I was dragged toward the abandoned outpost, feeling completely hopeless. The grip on the back of my neck was brutal. As two pack warriors dragged me toward the abandoned warehouse, students along the hallway stuck their heads out to watch. Their whispers felt like tiny needles piercing straight into my brain. The warrior holding me gripped so tightly that his claws dug through my clothes and into the flesh of my arm. It hurt. I clenched the hem of my shirt, my eyes burning with tears. I had been like this since I was a child. When others pushed me lightly, I would hurt for hours. Now, with the warrior's knuckles squeezing my wrist bone like steel pliers, waves of intense pain flooded my entire body. "Still acting tough? Who do you think you are? Why are you crying? Stop playing the victim." Ivy Linwood sauntered over to me in her 4-inch stilettos. Her fingers, painted blood red, flew up. Slap. She struck my face right in front of everyone. She was the eldest daughter of the Ice Wolf Pack's Alpha. The Linwood family sat on the board of trustees at Northwood University. She had just returned from Europe, only to find that her Alpha had been taken by a human with witch blood. To her, this was a double insult. She hated witches, and she despised humans. 10 minutes ago, when she kicked my dorm door open, I was typing my thesis on my laptop. Before I could even finish a sentence, she splashed half a cup of iced soda all over me. "How dare a human with witch blood seduce Alpha Victor?" She shrieked so loudly that the entire dorm floor poked their heads out. Those curious, mocking, and gossiping stares fell on my face. Shame and anger rushed through me, choking back any words of defense. The warrior behind me shoved me forward. I stumbled, my arm twisted behind my back. My joint let out a sharp pop. The agonizing pain shot straight to my brain, making my vision go dark. "What are you doing?" "I've already notified the pack enforcement." My roommate, Chloe, rushed over to stop them, only to be shoved hard against the wall by a warrior. Her phone slipped from her hand and shattered on the floor. Ivy sneered, stepping over my scattered belongings, and ordered the warriors to keep moving. "Pack enforcement," she laughed arrogantly. "Even if you take this to the pack tribunal, it's useless. The Linwood family owns this school. You're just a witch-blooded human who barged in here by seducing Victor. What are you, anyway?" I looked at my printed thesis and notes, now covered in muddy footprints. My twisted arm was still throbbing with pain. A tear slipped down and splashed onto the back of my hand. I bit my lip to keep from crying out, but my pain-hypersensitive body made it impossible to control. Seeing this, Ivy mocked. "Oh, look at you. Who do you think you are, playing the fragile victim?" Just as she raised her hand to deliver another slap to my face, a voice roared from the end of the hallway, "Stop right there." The man leading the way was Alpha Victor's beta deputy, Derek. Behind him stood 4 uniformed pack warriors, lined up in perfect formation. Derek looked at Ivy with a cold sneer, his voice freezing the air. "Miss Linwood, I suggest you don't do anything stupid. If anything happens to Miss Whitmore, I'm afraid you won't survive the consequences. She is our Alpha's fated mate. Harming her is a direct declaration of war against the Moonclaw pack." Ivy froze for 2 seconds, then burst into a mocking laugh. She took a step forward, completely unfazed. She pointed her long fingernail right at Derek's nose, her tone dripping with arrogance. "Who do you think you are? A mere dog of the Moonclaw pack dares to block my path? Watch your tongue. I've known Victor for over a decade. A beta like you dares to play the hero here?" She cursed as she shoved Derek's shoulder, glaring at him bossily. "Get the hell out of my way. Let me teach this girl a lesson. When Alpha Victor arrives, I'll make him fire you on the spot." Ivy turned her glare back to me. "Sage, don't think you're special just because you got a beta deputy to back you up. He's nothing but a pack dog. I don't give a damn about him." Derek's expression turned utterly cold. The polite, professional smile on his face vanished. Nobody liked being called a dog. But Ivy, spoiled her entire life, completely ignored the dangerous shift in the room. She kept mocking me, starting rumors on the spot. "Your mother died early, and your grandmother is paralyzed in bed. You couldn't even afford tuition. Didn't you sell your body to get your name on the Vance Industries internship list? With every word she spoke, the murmurs around us grew louder. Several classmates who didn't know me began to believe her lies. Wait, is her family really that broke? No wonder she never eats at the nice diners. She's desperate for cash. Could Ivy be telling the truth? The Vance Industries internship is almost impossible to get. How could a poor orphan get chosen over everyone else? Yikes. She looks so innocent, but she's actually so wild behind closed doors. I dug my fingernails deep into my palms, turning them white. My slapped cheek was still burning, and my twisted arm throbbed. I couldn't even tell what hurt more anymore. I wanted to cry. I was furious that she was spreading disgusting rumors, and I was terrified that everyone would believe them. It was true that I was poor. Even though my mother was a witch, I didn't inherit any magical talent except for this hypersensitive body. My grandma had been paralyzed from a stroke for 5 years. Her medical bills were over $4,000 a month. I worked 3 part-time jobs and studied late into the night to keep my scholarship just to pay for school. But I got the Vance Industries internship fair and square. I beat out over 3,000 applicants through 5 rounds of brutal interviews. I had nothing to be ashamed of. Yet, the words clogged in my throat. I opened my mouth, but no sound came out. The blood rushed to my head, and my ears buzzed. Standing beside me, Derek saw my pale face and the endless tears streaming down. His expression changed instantly. Only he knew what this meant. One night a year ago, Ivy had hired a group of thugs to corner me in a dark alley behind the campus. They dragged me to a corner and beat me. As I curled into a ball, one of my ribs snapped. The agonizing pain surged through my body like electricity. I nearly blacked out. At that exact moment, Alpha Victor was hosting a routine meeting in the pack council hall. In the middle of his speech, his face turned deathly pale. He clutched his chest and collapsed to the floor. The pack elders panicked. The healers from the Silver Moon Clinic rushed in, but his vitals were perfectly normal, except for a massive, dark purple bruise that rapidly formed on his chest, right where I had been kicked. The healers were baffled. Victor couldn't explain where the pain came from either. Over the next few months, similar phantom pains occurred. Sometimes, while signing documents, his arm would feel as if it were being sliced by a blade, yet his skin remained intact. Sometimes, he would wake up gasping in the middle of the night, feeling as if he were being strangled, though there were no marks on his neck. The pack doctors ran every test possible, brain CTs, cardiac ultrasounds, blood analysis. Everything was normal. Some elders even feared he had been cursed by a rival pack. They brought in the elder Luna to perform a blessing ceremony, but nothing changed. Until one day, Victor visited Northwood University. I happened to run into Ivy in the hallway. She slapped me in front of everyone, her nails scratching my face. The instant the sharp pain registered in my brain, Victor, who was in the principal's office, dropped his coffee cup. He collapsed to the floor, clutching his face, his shirt soaked in cold sweat. The principal was terrified, thinking he had been poisoned. When the school doctor examined Victor's cheek, they watched the skin turn red and swell up in real time, exactly as if he had just been slapped. At that moment, Victor finally understood. It wasn't a curse. I was his fated mate. A witch's daughter had become the fated mate of an alpha werewolf. Fate had forged a unique bond between us. My physical pain was transmitted to him through the blood bond, magnified tenfold. Every time I was bullied, beaten, or hurt, he felt 10 times the agony instantly. If I were to be fatally injured, his heart might literally stop. Only Derek knew about this secret. That was why Victor had ordered him to watch over me 24 hours a day. Anyone who dared to make me suffer would pay with their lives. Derek's voice was tense as he roared at the warriors. What are you waiting for? Confiscate the phones of anyone who recorded videos or spread rumors. Note down their names. The pack tribunal will issue subpoenas to every single one of them. Seeing Derek panic, Ivy became even more arrogant. Oh. Are you sleeping with her too? Is that why you're protecting her so desperately? The way this dog guards its bone is hilarious. She snatched my canvas bag from the side and slammed it onto the floor. That bag held my grandma's imported medication. As the bag hit the floor, the plastic bottles shattered. The yellow pills scattered everywhere, rolling into the dirt, ruined. Go on, pick them up, Ivy sneered, her eyes dripping with malice. Don't you dogs love fetching things? My fingers trembled violently. I bent down to reach for the pills that hadn't touched the dirt yet. But a stiletto heel stomped down first, crushing the pills into powder. The yellow dust mixed with the dirt, completely useless now. Pick them up. Why did you stop? Ivy laughed hysterically. Is it too dirty? How about you lick it off the floor, and I'll buy you 10 new bottles. Deal? I snapped my head up to look at her, my eyes bloodshot. Derek's face was dark as thunder. He threw a heavy punch, knocking down the warrior guarding Ivy. The other pack warriors jumped in, pinning Ivy's minions to the ground. Derek rushed over to me. He took off his suit jacket and wrapped it around my shoulders, blocking me from the prying eyes of the crowd. He spoke in a whisper, terrified of triggering my panic. Miss Whitmore, it's okay. I will get the exact same medicine from the Silver Moon Clinic immediately. Don't be scared. I'm here. I leaned against his arm, shivering. My tears soaked into his jacket, leaving damp circles. I thought this nightmare was finally over. But Ivy, seeing her people pinned down, didn't look scared at all. Instead, she laughed even wilder. The pure malice in her eyes made my blood run cold. You're quite a fighter, aren't you, Derek? You think you can protect her? Let me tell you, even if God himself came down today, he would still beg me on his knees. Derek's voice turned murderous. Ivy Linwood, you are begging for death. Alpha Victor will destroy you. Destroy me? Ivy laughed. She swiped her screen and thrust the phone right in front of my face. Let's see who destroys whom. I looked at her screen. In an instant, my blood turned to ice. The screen showed an abandoned warehouse with damp concrete floors and no windows. My grandma was lying on a rusted cot in the middle of the room. And 4 needle was taped to her thin, frail hand. The 4 bag hung from a rusty pole, swaying in the wind. I could see the blood backflowing into the tube. 2 burly men with full-sleeve tattoos stood nearby, smoking and playing mobile games. The camera zoomed in on Grandma's face. She seemed to hear something. She opened her cloudy eyes, struggling to turn her head. She opened her dry mouth, her voice raspy. Sage. Sage, where are you? I'm so cold. My brain went completely blank. She was my only family in this world. I had no parents. My grandma had raised me by collecting recyclables. After her stroke last year, I worked myself to the bone to put her in the best care facility in the city. I spent most of my salary on a one-on-one nurse just to make sure she was comfortable and could stay with me a few years longer. And Ivy had dragged her out of that warm facility and thrown her into a freezing dump. Look at her, so pathetic. Ivy's voice crawled over me like a venomous snake. I paid off the facility's night nurse. Nobody knows where your grandmother is. Only I do. Now, get down on your knees and beg me. Give me 10 hard head bows on the floor, then take this box cutter and slash your own face. Only then will I consider releasing her. Otherwise, I'll call my men right now and tell them to pull her plug. If she dies, don't blame me. I shook like a leaf, my heart aching as if it were being torn out and crushed. Tears poured down my face, drowned out by Ivy's triumphant laughter. Seeing Grandma on the screen, Derek lunged to grab Ivy's phone. Ivy Linwood, you're out of your mind. Kidnapping a human is a direct violation of the peace treaty. The human government will get involved. If you release her now, I can still show some mercy. Otherwise, you'll rot in the pack dungeons forever. Ivy dodged his grasp, her finger tapping the call button. She put it on speaker. The tattooed man's voice came through instantly. Ivy, what's the plan? Do we pull the plug now? Ivy tilted her chin up, looking down at me with cold malice. Sage, you heard him. I'm counting to 3. If you're not on your knees, they pull the plug. 3. 2. All the strength drained from my body. Grandma's raspy coughing echoed from the speaker. I couldn't lose her. My knees buckled, and I slammed onto the hard concrete. 1. Ivy stopped counting, bursting into a smug laugh. Well, look at you, so obedient. Go on, 10 head bows. Don't skip a single one. Derek desperately tried to pull me up. Miss Whitmore, don't do this. Alpha Victor is almost here. I've already sent a team to rescue your grandmother. The phone in Derek's pocket vibrated madly. Victor's name flashed brightly on the screen. Before Derek could answer, Ivy kicked his wrist. His phone flew and smashed against the wall, going completely black. Alpha Victor, all you do is bark his name. When I talk to Victor later, you'll be the first one he executes. Ivy sneered, nodding at me. Start bowing. Don't waste my time. My patience is running thin. I bit my lip, forcing my forehead down against the cold concrete. Thud. The first impact brought a dull, throbbing pain. Tears splashed onto the floor. Thud. The second one. Ivy laughed harder, harder. Did you not eat today? People around us whispered. Some took out their phones to record, some shook their heads, and some said I deserved it. The third, the fourth. By the 10th time, my forehead was cut open. Blood trickled down my temple, dripping onto my white hoodie, blooming into bright red stains. I gasped, propping myself up on the floor. My vision was blurry. The wound on my forehead burned, throbbing with sharp pain. Not bad. Very obedient. Ivy nodded in satisfaction. She pulled a box cutter from her bag, clicked the blade out, and threw it onto the floor in front of me. Now, ruin your face. The deeper the cuts, the happier I'll be. If I'm satisfied, I'll let your grandmother go. I stared at the silver blade, my fingers trembling. If I cut my face, Grandma would live. Seeing my hesitation, Ivy frowned and kicked my arm. Hurry up. Stop stalling. If you don't do it, I'm pulling the plug. What, you can't bear to ruin this pretty face? Still hoping to seduce another alpha with it? I gritted my teeth and reached for the box cutter. The moment my fingers touched the cold metal, the wound on my forehead bled faster. The bruises on my knees throbbed. Fear and anger surged through me at once. My vision darkened, my tears mixing with the blood on my face. I could barely breathe. Just as I raised the blade to my cheek, a thunderous roar echoed from the hallway. Stop. Everyone turned to look. Through my blurry, blood-tinted vision, I saw Alpha Victor standing in the doorway. His usually neat hair was a wild mess. His face, normally cold as ice, was covered in tears. His eyes were bloodshot, and his lips were completely pale. The hallway fell into a dead silence. Seeing Victor covered in tears, Ivy assumed he had cried out of worry for her. Victor. She sprinted toward him in her high heels, her voice dripping with fake sweet sorrow. You're finally here. This woman and Derek teamed up to bully me. You have to punish them. Before her hand could even touch his sleeve, he swerved away. Without sparing her a single glance, Victor strode straight to me and dropped to his knees. His fingers trembled as he gently brushed the bloody hair away from my forehead. I stared at his red eyes, at the tears streaming down his face, the physical manifestation of my pain, magnified 10 times and sent directly to him. Victor, tell your ice wolf heiress. I whispered, my voice cracking. What happens to you, if I feel too much pain? By the time I finished my question, the blood from my forehead had seeped into my eyes. Everything in front of me was stained a blurry red. My forehead burned, my slapped cheek stung like hot iron, and my nerves were stretched to the breaking point by fear and anger. I forced myself to hold on to consciousness, waiting for his answer, but my mind was slipping away like loose sand. Before darkness took me, I saw Victor's face turn paper white, tears pouring from his eyes. He tried to reach out to catch me, but his own knees buckled first. 2 heavy thuds echoed. We collapsed onto the cold concrete floor, one after the other. The crowd erupted into chaos. Ivy, who had been frozen in shock, panicked completely. Victor. Victor. What's wrong with you? Derek's heart nearly stopped. I had passed out from the pain, which meant Victor was currently feeling 10 times that agony, a level of pain that could literally kill him. Call the Silver Moon Clinic ambulance. Now. Confiscate every single phone. Delete everything they recorded. If a single word of this leaks out, the Pack Tribunal will seize your entire family assets. Several Pack warriors charged into the crowd, grabbing phones and wiping every photo and video, even clearing the deleted folders. Ivy was still screaming, trying to get to Victor, but the warriors pinned her to the floor. Derek immediately dialed the Pack enforcement. When I finally woke up, the sharp scent of antiseptic filled my nose. It was the Silver Moon Clinic. It smelled similar to human hospitals, but with a faint, herbal undertone unique to werewolf healers. The wound on my forehead had been bandaged. It felt cool and barely hurt. Seeing me stir, the healer sitting by my bed smiled warmly. You're finally awake. Don't worry, your grandmother has been brought to the clinic's VIP suite. Our specialists checked her over. She just caught a mild cold. She'll be discharged in a couple of days after some 4 fluids. The heavy weight on my chest finally lifted. As I tried to sit up, I heard rustling from the bed next to mine. I turned my head. Victor was lying on the neighboring bed, and 4 drip in his hand. His face was pale, almost translucent, with dark circles under his eyes. The moment he saw me open my eyes, he struggled to sit up, causing the blood to backflow into his 4 tube. You're awake, he rasped, his voice incredibly hoarse. His trembling fingers reached out to touch my bandage. When you blacked out. I felt like I was dying. The tenfold suffocating, crushing pain had felt like being submerged in freezing water. Every single heartbeat felt like a knife twisting in his chest. In his 28 years of life, he had never been so close to death. Just then, the door pushed open. Derek walked in carrying some takeout. Seeing us both awake, he let out a sigh of relief, though his face remained grim. Alpha Victor, Miss Whitmore. We have a problem. Ivy Linwood is throwing a tantrum at the Pack Enforcement headquarters. She's claiming Miss Whitmore faked the fainting to frame her. She even contacted your mother, the former Luna, telling her that Miss Whitmore is using a witch's spell to control you. The former Luna is already on her way here. Also, those gossiping students leaked some edited videos onto the school forum before we could wipe them. Now everyone online is calling Miss Whitmore a homewrecker who seduced you, driving Ivy to despair. Victor let out a cold, chilling laugh. First, have the Pack Tribunal issue immediate subpoenas. Every Pack member involved in spreading those rumors will be dealt with under the Pack Code and banished from our territory. Second, notify all allied Packs that we are terminating all trade with the Linwood family. Anyone who does business with them is an enemy of the Moonclaw Pack. I want the Linwoods stripped of their seat on the council within 3 months. Third, Ivy Linwood assaulted my fated mate, violating the Supreme Protection Order of the Luna. Charge her with kidnapping and aggravated assault. Hand her over to the Pack Tribunal for trial. Derek nodded quickly, turning to leave. But before he could reach the door, it was violently kicked open. The former Luna, Serafina, marched in wearing a vintage Chanel tweed suit. Her face was flushed with rage. The moment she saw me, she lunged and slapped me across the face. The sound cracked through the VIP suite like a whip. Former Luna Serafina's palm struck my swollen cheek with raw, unbridled hatred. My head snapped sideways, the freshly stitched skin on my forehead pulling so violently that warm blood immediately seeped through the white bandage. My hypersensitive nerves didn't just register pain, they amplified it into a lightning storm that scorched through every neural pathway in my body. To me, a slap wasn't just a sting. It was a red-hot iron plate pressed against raw flesh, sending agonizing shocks through my skull, my teeth, and down into my spine. I didn't even have time to cry out. Beside me, the air turned instantly frigid. A guttural, non-human shriek tore from Alpha Victor's throat. The blood bond, amplified tenfold, hit him like a cannon shell to the chest. Victor's eyes rolled back. His bare chest heaved in a violent spasm, his back arching off the hospital bed so hard that the heavy iron frame groaned under his weight. Crack. The foreline snapped. Blood spurted from the back of his hand, splashing across the white sheets. Victor. Serafina gasped, her arrogance vanishing into sheer terror as she watched her son convulse. Victor, what's happening to you? Get your hands off her. Victor choked out. His skin turned a horrifying shade of mottled gray. Sweat poured off him in sheets, drenching his hospital gown. Because he was feeling 10 times the agony of a slap on a witch-blooded human's hypersensitive skin, his brain reacted as if his skull had been shattered by a warhammer. He clutched his own face, screaming in phantom agony as a deep, crimson bruise rapidly bloomed across his own jawline, an exact mirror image of the mark his mother had just left on me. A spell. She's cast a dark spell on you. Serafina shrieked, backing away in horror, pointing a trembling, diamond-encrusted finger at me. Guards. Kill this witch. She's killing my son. Touch her and I will rip your throats out. Victor roared, forcing himself out of the bed. The raw power of an alpha's aura exploded throughout the room. The reinforced glass windows shattered outward into thousands of sparkling shards. Serafina was thrown against the wall by the sheer acoustic force of his voice. Victor fell to his hands and knees, gasping, coughing up a spatter of dark blood onto the polished tile. Every breath he took was torture, yet he crawled, literally crawled on his hands and knees across the blood-stained floor, until his trembling hand gripped the hem of my gown. Sage. He sobbed, his voice breaking into a ragged whisper. His glowing golden eyes locked onto mine, filled with a terrifying mixture of agonizing pain and absolute devotion. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I let her hurt you. I reached down, my hands trembling violently, and touched his sweat-drenched hair. The moment my fingers made contact with his skin, the blood bond smoothed out slightly. The shared agony plateaued, settling into a dull, thumping ache. Derek rushed into the room, his sidearm drawn, followed by 6 elite pack enforcement officers. Seeing the shattered glass, the blood spattered across the floor, and Alpha Victor kneeling at my feet while spitting blood, Derek's face drained of all color. Derek. Victor rasped, his eyes turning black as his inner wolf fought to take control through the agony. I am here, Alpha. Derek dropped to one knee, his chest heaving. Former Luna Serafina has violated the supreme protection order of the mate, Victor commanded, each word costing him a lungful of air. Strip her of her title. Revoke her access to the pack vault, and lock her in the obsidian cells beneath the citadel. Serafina's eyes went wide. Victor. I am your mother. You would throw your own blood into the dark dungeon for a dirty, low-life human witch? You are no mother of mine, Victor snarled, pushing himself up, using the side of my bed for leverage. He stood tall, though his body shook from the lingering phantom pain. You hit my life. You brought me closer to death than any enemy warrior ever has. Guards, take her. No. Let go of me. You've been bewitched. The Linwoods will hear of this. The Ice Wolf Pack will mobilize. Serafina screamed as 2 hulking warriors grabbed her arms, forcing her toward the door. Ivy was right. This human is a parasite. Her shrieks echoed down the long, sterile hallway until the heavy steel doors slammed shut, plunging the suite into a heavy, suffocating silence. By the next morning, the werewolf world was in turmoil. Despite Derek's iron-fisted censorship, snippets of video from Northwood University had circulated on dark web werewolf forums. The headlines were brutal. Alpha Victor bewitched by human orphan. Ice Wolf heiress Ivy Linwood assaulted by Moonclaw Beta. The weakness of Moonclaw, how a single human slap can fell an alpha. In the private study of the Moonclaw Citadel, I sat wrapped in a heavy cashmere blanket. The fire crackled in the stone hearth, casting long, dancing shadows across the ancient oak walls. My forehead was neatly stitched, and my cheek had calmed to a dull blush, but my soul felt raw. Victor stood by the floor-to-ceiling window, staring out at the snow-covered pine forests of his territory. He was dressed in a dark suit, looking every bit the feared Alpha King, yet I could see the subtle twitch in his right hand, a lingering nerve spasm from yesterday's trauma. "Your grandmother is comfortable," Victor said softly, turning to look at me. His gaze softened instantly, the terrifying alpha aura melting away into pure tenderness. "I've transferred her to the private royal sanctuary. 3 specialists are monitoring her round the clock. No one, not Ivy, not my mother, not an army, can touch her there." "Thank you, Victor," I whispered, clutching my warm mug of tea. "But this can't go on." Victor froze. "What do you mean?" "Look at you," I said, tears brimming in my eyes. "You're the strongest alpha in the Northern Hemisphere. Entire packs tremble when you speak. But because of me, because of my broken, pathetic body, a simple pinch makes you bleed. A slap almost stopped your heart. If someone shoots me, Victor, you die." I looked down at my hands. Ivy was right about one thing. I am a liability. A weapon meant to destroy you. In a heartbeat, Victor crossed the room. He dropped to his knees in front of my chair, taking my small, cold hands into his large, warm palms. He squeezed gently, careful, always so careful, never to exert enough force to hurt me. "Listen to me, Sage Whitmore," he said, his voice deep and vibrating against my chest. "You are not a curse. You are my fate. The Moonclaw lineage has been cold, violent, and ruthless for 5 centuries. Fate gave me you, not to make me weak, but to teach me what is worth protecting." He leaned up and pressed a gentle, feather-light kiss to my uninjured cheek. Even that delicate touch sent a pleasant, tinging spark through my sensitive nerves, making my heart flutter. "Besides," Victor added, a dark, dangerous smile touching his lips, "your mother told you that your body is sensitive enough to feel the wrinkles of fate. Didn't she?" I blinked. "Yes. She said it right before she died." Victor stood up and walked over to his desk, picking up an ancient, leather-bound book with silver clasps. The cover bore the crest of a blooming moonflower wrapped in thorned vines, the signet of the ancient witch covenants. "Your mother wasn't just a human with a hint of magic, Sage," Victor said gravely, placing the book on my lap. "She was the last direct descendant of the first seers, witches who didn't throw fireballs or brew potions, but whose bodies were hyper-attuned to the ley lines of the earth and the life forces of living beings." I stared at the dusty book. "What are you saying?" "Your pain sensitivity isn't a medical defect, Sage." Victor leaned down, his glowing eyes locked on mine. "It's an undeveloped sensory organ. You aren't just feeling physical pain. You are feeling the dark intent, the malice, and the shifts in the atmosphere before they physically happen. You just haven't learned how to read the signals." Before I could digest his words, the heavy double doors of the study burst open. Derek stepped in, his face grim, covered in snow. "Alpha. The Ice Wolf Pack has officially broken the Treaty of Northwood." Victor didn't flinch. He simply walked back to his desk, his demeanor shifting instantly into that of a war commander. "Details. Alpha Raymond Linwood, Ivy's father, has rallied 4 neighboring packs under the banner of the Pure Blood Alliance," Derek reported, unrolling a tactical map onto the table. "They claim that you are unfit to rule the Moonclaw pack due to your slavery to a human witch. They are demanding that you hand Miss Whitmore over to the pack tribunal for immediate execution, release former Luna, Seraphina, and marry Ivy Linwood to consolidate the northern territories." I swallowed hard. "And if he refuses?" Derek glanced at me sympathetically. "They have deployed 300 Ice Wolf vanguards to the southern border. They are setting up silver-tipped artillery. They give us 48 hours to surrender Miss Whitmore, or they march on the Citadel." 48 hours? Victor let out a dark, booming laugh that rattled the crystal chandelier above. "Raymond Linwood truly believes his ice puppies can stand against the Moonclaw. There is one more thing, Alpha," Derek's voice lowered, growing tense. "Ivy Linwood did not return to her pack. She has gone into hiding within the University District, backed by rogue human mercenaries. Rumor has it, she purchased a vial of Silverbane from the underground black market." My blood ran cold. Silverbane. Even with my limited knowledge of werewolf lore, I knew what that was. It was an illegal, synthetic neurotoxin designed by rogue alchemists. To a werewolf, it was painful and temporarily paralyzing. But to a human, especially a human with hypersensitive witch blood, it was liquid fire that rotted the nervous system. From the inside out within minutes. And if Ivy injected me with silver bane? Victor's eyes flashed a terrifying, murderous crimson. The mahogany desk beneath. His hand cracked down the middle under his grip. She wants to use the blood bond against me, Victor hissed, his voice sounding like two grinding stones. If she inflicts agonizing death on Sage, the phantom. Feedback will destroy my mind before my warriors can strike back. Exactly, Derek said quietly. It is a suicide strategy, but Raymond Linwood is desperate. His family's corporate empire is collapsing due to your trade blockades. He has nothing left to lose. Victor turned to me. The rage in his eyes instantly softened into intense, protective anxiety. Derek, prepare the underground vault. Sage stays inside the mountain until this war is finished. No one enters without my personal blood seal. No, I spoke up, my voice surprising even myself. Victor turned, frowning. Sage, this isn't a negotiation. You are their target. And as long as I hide like a frightened rabbit, you will be fighting with one hand tied behind your back. I stood up, dropping the blanket. The ancient book fell to the floor, spilling open to a page adorned with silver runes. I looked straight into Victor's eyes, refusing to back down. Victor, every time someone hurts me, you suffer. But if I hide in a dark room, terrified of every shadow, my heart rate spikes, my blood pressure surges, and you feel that constant, suffocating anxiety through the bond anyway, don't you? Victor remained silent, his jaw clenched tightly. I felt it yesterday, I continued, taking a step toward him. When I was terrified for my grandmother, you were losing your breath even before you arrived at the hallway. My fear hurts you just as much as a physical strike. I picked up the ancient book and held it against my chest. Teach me, I said firmly. Teach me what my witch blood actually is. If this sensitivity is a gift, then let me learn how to use it. Don't lock me away to be a vulnerability. Let me stand beside you. Victor stared at me for a long, silent moment. The silence stretched in the grand study, broken only by the crackle of the fireplace. Finally, a faint, proud smile tugged at the corner of his lips. Derek, Victor commanded softly. Yes, Alpha. Bring the High Seer from the Northern Coven. Tell her, the heiress of the First Blood has awakened. Deep within the stone catacombs of the Moonclaw Citadel lay the Sanctum of Echoes, a room built entirely of raw, unpolished obsidian and white quartz. Sitting cross-legged on the cold stone floor was an old woman with blind, milky white eyes and silver hair that swept down to her waist. She was Seer Morwen, the oldest living witch in the Northern Territories. I sat opposite her, while Victor stood near the doorway, his arms crossed, watching me like a hawk. Every time I shivered from the cold stone, I could see Victor's brow twitch as the sensation trickled through our bond. Child of the First Blood, Morwen's voice sounded like dry leaves rustling in the wind. You view your skin as a thin garment that lets every needle pierce your soul. You think you are weak. It feels weak, I admitted, my fingers tracing the cold obsidian floor. I can feel the coldness of this stone in my bone marrow right now. It hurts. Because you are letting the sensation flood into your brain uncontrolled. Morwen said, raising a withered hand. Pain is merely information, child. It is the body telling the mind, look here, something is changing. Ordinary humans feel only the end result, the tissue damage. Wolves feel the physical impact. But a First Blood Seer feels the energy before it manifests. Morwen reached into her robes and pulled out a small, iron dagger. Victor instantly took a step forward, a low growl rising in his chest. Morwen. Quiet, Alpha, the old woman snapped without turning around. If you wish your mate to survive the venom of the ice wolves, she must learn to turn her skin into a shield, not a target. Morwen held the dagger above my outstretched palm. I am going to prick your finger, Morwen warned. Normally, your brain would scream that your hand is being severed. I want you to close your eyes. Do not focus on the point of the blade. Focus on the air around the blade. I closed my eyes. My breathing was ragged. Fear clutched at my chest, the familiar, sickening dread of impending pain. Through the bond, I felt Victor's pulse skyrocket. He was feeling my panic, his own heart racing in sync with mine. Calm down, Sage, I told myself. Do it for Victor. Do it for Grandma. I took a deep breath. I let the cold air fill my lungs. I closed my eyes tighter and stopped looking at the blade in my mind. Instead, I tried to feel the room. It was strange at first. But as I focused, the physical sting of the cold stone beneath me began to blur. Instead, I felt pulses. I felt the immense, burning furnace of life that was Alpha Victor standing 10 feet away. His heartbeat was a deep, thunderous drum, his love and worry washing over me like waves of warm sunlight. And then, I felt Morwen. Her energy was like dry parchment, brittle but sharp. I felt the cold metallic aura of the iron dagger dropping slowly toward my finger. I felt the trajectory before it touched me. Snatched. Before the blade could even touch my skin, my hand instinctively twitched. Sideways, dodging the point by a hair's breadth. I opened my eyes, gasping. Morwen chuckled, a dry, satisfied sound. Excellent. You felt the shift in the air pressure and the intent of the metal. You didn't react to the pain, you reacted to the intent. I felt it, I whispered, staring at my hand. It was like a tiny wrinkle. In the air. Now, the second lesson, Morwen's blind eyes turned strictly toward me. The pain feedback loop between you and your mate. When you feel pain, your brain panics, magnifying the nerve signals. You send that panic to Alpha Victor, who magnifies it tenfold, creating an agonizing loop that paralyzes you both. How do I stop it? I asked eagerly. You do not block the pain, Morwen said solemnly. You transmute it. When pain enters your body, instead of absorbing it into your nerves, you pass it into your witch blood and burn it off as raw magical energy. She reached out and pinched my wrist hard. The sharp, agonizing pain flared up instantly. My vision flashed white. Across the room, Victor groaned, clutching his wrist as a dark mark appeared on his skin. Don't scream, Morwen commanded. Feel the pain. It is just heat. Mold it. Direct it into the quartz beneath you. I gritted my teeth, blood dripping from my bitten lip. The pain was excruciating, like a hot wire pushed under my skin. But instead of letting my mind collapse into tears and panic, I visualized the red-hot energy flowing down my arm, through my palm, and into the white quartz crystal built into the floor. Glow. The white quartz floor beneath my palm suddenly burst into a brilliant, violet light. The sharp agony on my wrist instantly vanished. Across the room, Victor gasped. His eyes widening in shock as the phantom pain on his own arm dissipated into nothingness. He looked at his wrist, then at the glowing quartz beneath my hand, utterly speechless. I looked up at Morwen, my lungs heaving, a fierce, triumphant smile spreading across my face. Pain is not my curse, I whispered, feeling a surge of wild, unfamiliar power humming beneath my skin. It's my fuel. 36 hours later. Night fell over Northwood University. The campus was entirely evacuated under the guise of a chemical leak warning issued by the city council, a cover story orchestrated by Derek. The Grand Gothic building stood silent under the heavy snowfall, shrouded in an eerie, thick fog. In the center of the snow-covered quadrangle stood Ivy Linwood. She was dressed in a white fur coat, her red hair wild in the wind. Behind her stood 20 elite Ice Wolf Guardians, armed with heavy silver crossbows and military-grade rifles. In her right hand, Ivy held a gleaming glass syringe filled with a bubbling, iridescent silver liquid, Silverbane. And beside her, tied to a wooden chair in the freezing snow, was my roommate, Chloe. A heavy silver collar was locked around Chloe's neck, bruising her skin. Her face pale from cold and fear. Sage Whitmore. Ivy's voice rang out through the deserted quad, amplified by a bullhorn. I know you're hiding behind your wolf daddy. Come out, you dirty witch, or I'll inject your little human friend with Silverbane right now. High on the roof of the library, shadowed by the gargoyles, stood Victor and me. Victor was dressed in black tactical armor, his dark eyes fixed on Ivy. My snipers have eyes on all 20 guardians. We can end this in 3 seconds. No, I said softly, touching his arm. If your snipers fire, Ivy's twitching thumb will press that syringe into Chloe's neck. Silverbane acts instantly. I looked down at the quad. Thanks to Morwen's training over the past day and night, my sensory perception had transformed completely. I didn't just see the quad. I felt it. I felt the cold wind cutting across the snow, not as a painful sting, but as a map of air currents. I felt the hostile, murderous intent radiating from Ivy, like waves of noxious, black smoke. And I felt the subtle, hidden pulse of 6 more Ice Wolf assassins lurking in the shadows of the clock tower. She has ambushes set up in the clock tower, I told Victor quietly. 6 men. High-caliber silver rounds aimed at where you would drop if I were hit. Victor's eyes narrowed in icy admiration. You can feel them? I can feel their heartbeats, I murmured. Victor, let me go down there. Victor's grip on my shoulder tightened dangerously. Sage. Trust me, I turned to look into his eyes, pressing my palm against his chest. Right over his beating heart. You felt what we did in the sanctum. As long as I stay calm, you won't suffer. Let me draw her out. Victor stared at me for 3 agonizing seconds. Then, he bowed his head and pressed his forehead against mine. If she touches a single hair on your head, he whispered darkly, I will burn the ice wolf territory to ashes. Deal. I walked out from the main archway of the academic building, my boots crunching softly in the fresh snow. I wore a dark wool coat, my head held high, my face serene and calm. Seeing me walk out alone, Ivy let out a cruel, triumphant laugh. Well, well. Look who finally decided to crawl out. Ivy sneered, stepping over the snow toward me, holding the syringe high. Where is your alpha protector? Is he hiding in his castle, too scared to face the Pure Blood Alliance? Victor is where he needs to be, I said calmly, stopping 10 paces away from her. Ivy, put the syringe down. Release Chloe. Your father's alliance is a delusion. The Moonclaw pack has already seized your family's offshore accounts. It's over. Ivy's face twisted in ugly rage. Shut up. Shut up. You ruined everything. I was supposed to be Luna. I was supposed to rule the North. You're just a filthy, poor, motherless human witch. She motioned with her hand. 2 ice wolf guardians rushed forward, grabbing my arms and forcing me down onto my knees in the snow. The sudden brutal grip pressed into my arms. Instinctive threat registered. In the past, this pressure would have made me scream in pain, sending a shockwave of agony to Victor. But now? I closed my eyes for a fraction of a second. I felt the physical pressure entering my nerves. Instead of absorbing it, I guided the pain through my blood pathways, converting it into raw magical tension, storing it beneath my core. On the roof, Victor felt only a mild, warm buzz. He stayed perfectly calm, signaling his elite squad to move into position behind the clock tower. Ivy strutted over, her stiletto heel sinking into the snow. She raised her hand and delivered a furious, full-force slap straight across my face. Slap. The sound echoed through the quad. Chloe screamed from her chair. Sage. Ivy grinned maniacally, waiting to hear me shriek, waiting to see Alpha Victor drop from the roof in paralyzing phantom agony. But no scream came. I slowly turned my head back. My cheek was bright red, but my eyes were cold, clear, and glowing with a faint, dangerous violet light. I didn't flinch. I didn't shed a single tear. Ivy's smile froze. What is this? Why aren't you crying? Is that the best you can do? I asked quietly, my voice calm as ice. Panic flashed through Ivy's eyes. You crazy witch. She lunged forward, plunging the glass syringe of Silverbane straight toward my neck. Die. Wrinkle of fate detected. My hypersensitive nerves felt the shift in her shoulder muscle a microsecond before she drove the needle down. Instead of dodging, I reached out with blinding speed. My hand clamped around Ivy's wrist like a vice. What? Ivy gasped. Using the pain stored in my body from her slap, I triggered the transmuted witch energy within my blood. A burst of shockwave magic exploded from my palm. Boom. The force of the kinetic blast shattered the glass syringe in Ivy's hand, sending the deadly Silverbane fluid splashing harmlessly onto the snow, where it hissed and dissolved the ice in dark purple smoke. Ivy was thrown backward by the explosion, tumbling violently across the snow, her white fur coat covered in dirt and slush. Now! I shouted. Thud. 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 Sniper fire echoed from the rooftops. The 6 ice wolf assassins in the clock tower were taken down instantly by Victor's elite marksmen. Before the remaining 20 guardians could even raise their weapons, a dark shadow descended from the sky like a falling meteor. Crash. Alpha Victor landed in the center of the quad, his massive black wolf form shifting back into a towering, terrifying king. His golden eyes roared with celestial fury. With a single sweep of his arm, a wave of pressure knocked 10 guardians off their feet, breaking their weapons into splinters. Derek and 50 Moonclaw warriors stormed the quad from all sides, instantly pinning every single ice wolf soldier to the ground. The battle was over in less than 30 seconds. Ivy scrambled backward through the snow, her fingernails bleeding as she tried to drag herself away from the monstrous Alpha advancing on her. No. No. Stay away from me. She sobbed, all her previous arrogance crushed into absolute terror. Father. Help me. Alpha Victor stepped over her crushed syringe, his polished leather boots stopping inches from her face. He didn't even look at her, his eyes were fixed on me as I walked over to Chloe, quickly cutting her ropes and wrapping my coat around my shaking roommate. Sage, Victor called out softly, his voice dropping its terrifying edge. Are you unhurt? I am fine, Victor, I said, looking back at him with a warm smile. Not a scratch. Through the blood bond, Victor felt the absolute truth of my words. For the first time since we met, he felt no phantom pain, no echo of suffering, only the deep, resonant warmth of my strength blending with his. He turned his gaze down to Ivy, his face morphing into an expression of absolute disgust. Ivy Linwood, Victor's voice boomed across the snowy field. For the crimes of high treason, terrorism against Northwood University, attempted murder of the Luna, and violating the sacred peace treaty, you and your father, Alpha Raymond Linwood, are hereby stripped of all titles, pack lands, and nobility. You can't do this. Ivy shrieked, clutching her broken wrist. My father has an army. At that exact moment, Derek's phone rang. He listened for 3 seconds, then stepped forward, showing a live video feed to Victor and Ivy. On the screen, Alpha Raymond Linwood was already in heavy silver handcuffs, surrounded by the High Council elders of the International Werewolf Federation. The Ice Wolf Pack flag was being lowered and torn to shreds. Your father surrendered 5 minutes ago, Miss Linwood, Derek said coldly. When he realized Alpha Victor wasn't affected by your attack, his alliance shattered. He gave you up to save his own skin. Ivy's eyes went wide. The last bit of hope drained from her face. She slumped into the cold snow, weeping hysterically, completely broken. Take her away, Victor ordered indifferently. She will spend the rest of her natural life in the silver mines of the Northern Waste. Let her learn what real hardship feels like. 2 Moonclaw warriors dragged the screaming Ivy away through the snow, her pristine white fur coat trailing in the mud. 3 months later, spring had come to the Moonclaw Valley. The snow had melted, giving way to endless fields of blue moonflowers and lush green pines. The grand plaza of the Moonclaw Citadel was packed with tens of thousands of wolves, human dignitaries, and witch representatives from across the continent. It was the day of the Luna coronation. Inside the grand dressing room, I stood before a tall mirror. I wore a breathtaking gown of deep crimson velvet, embroidered with intricate silver runes of protection and strength. On my forehead sat a delicate silver tiara, studded with violet quartz. My grandmother sat in a comfortable wheelchair beside me, looking healthy and full of life, tears of joy streaming down her cheeks. Your mother would be so proud of you, Sage, Grandma whispered, pressing my hand softly. She always knew your sensitivity wasn't a punishment. It was the universe preparing you to carry a heavy crown. I smiled, leaning down to kiss her cheek. I know, Grandma. I feel her with me. Every day. A soft knock sounded at the door, and Victor stepped in. He wore the regal black velvet cloak of the Supreme Sovereign, looking extraordinarily handsome. But as always, the moment his eyes met mine, all the stern kingliness melted away into deep, desperate love. He walked over, taking my hands, his golden eyes scanning my face. No pain, he asked softly, a routine check he performed every single day. No pain, I laughed softly, leaning in to press my forehead against his chest. Only warmth. Through the bond, I sent him a pulse of pure joy and power. Victor closed his eyes, inhaling deeply, savoring the sensation that now flowed continuously between our souls. My hypersensitivity hadn't disappeared, it had evolved. I could still feel the subtle vibrations of the earth, the emotions of the people around me, and the gentle rhythm of the wind. But it was no longer a weakness that brought us to our knees. It was a bridge that made us unassailable. Are you ready, my queen? Victor asked, holding out his arm. I am ready, my alpha, I answered, placing my hand in his. The heavy oak doors opened, revealing the sunlit balcony overlooking the vast territory. As Victor and I stepped out together onto the high terrace, tens of thousands of voices roared in unison, a deafening thunder that shook the very mountains. Hail Alpha Victor. Hail Luna Sage. Hail the witch Luna of Moonclaw. Victor wrapped his arm around my waist, pulling me close against his chest. As he leaned down to seal our fate with a passionate, deep kiss under the golden sunlight, I felt the vast, beautiful world through my sensitive skin, not as a needle of pain, but as an infinite song of love and power that would echo for generations to come.